Hello and welcome. A new year has started. It is a great time to assess our lives, to make plans, make goals, if that's something that you're interested in. But even if you don't, make specific goals, it is a good time to reflect on where you are in life. Take inventory of what's going well, what needs to be worked on, what feels good, what doesn't. So hopefully this webinar will help you to get things into alignment that may be a little out of whack, maybe a little out of balance. And aligning your life and aligning your inner self is not a one-time job. It's something that you may need to do daily or weekly, monthly, to maintain, that equilibrium or that attunement. So revisit this webinar as often as you'd like. It's completely free, and I hope that it is help to someone out there. So let's talk about what alignment is. It is similar to balance, yes. But when I think of alignment, I think of, as I mentioned, an assessment of what is stable or unstable, balanced or unbalanced in your life. And so it doesn't pertain to one particular thing. Alignment should also last a little bit longer, I think, than general balance. You can balance your mental state for one day, and then the next day, everything can be out of whack. With alignment, when it is done completely and broadly across your life, then it's something that should sustain itself for a while. And it's a little less susceptible to disruption than balance as well. But obviously they're very similar things. So we can define alignment as harmony and agreement across all areas of one's life. And we'll look into specific areas of our lives that tend to be misaligned. This won't be an exhaustive list, but it will hit at those key areas for most people. So an alignment check. My daily choices and behaviors reflect my core values. Let's go back. I have inner peace. So this refers to your thoughts and emotions. I know that I am fulfilling my life's purpose. If these are statements that you can strongly agree with, then you may be okay. You may be in a state of alignment. Congratulations. But if any of these areas kind of puts up a question mark for you, or you're certain that this is not a true statement as it pertains to your life, then it's an area of evaluation. Right? Because in order for your life to be in alignment, you should feel contentment in the choices that you're making and the decisions that you're making in your behaviors. If you're constantly doing things that you're not proud of or being dishonest with yourself for the sake of other people, that's misalignment. Let's look at some other ways that you can detect misalignment. So in work and career, you dread going to work or working. You robotically go through the motions. You have a general lack of fulfillment. So everyone has bad days. Everyone has days where they just don't want to go to work, right? It may not be because you hate work or your work environment. You just don't feel like going that day. Totally normal. But if this is a consistent theme in your life, maybe you never actually wanted that job in the first place, but it was the only thing available to you. You feel undervalued, unappreciated, isolated at work, misalignment. For a lot of people, work is one of their major passions in life, you know? It's something that gives them purpose and allows them to express themselves and express their skills and knowledge. So ideally, you wouldn't robotically go through the motions of your work life. You would be intentional and thoughtful about everything that you're doing because you care. And so you want to have that sense of fulfillment in your work. I mean, these are for folks that have careers or long-term jobs, which is, I think, most people's ideal situation. You want to be fulfilled. You want to feel like you're contributing something, that you have value, that you're making a difference. So if this isn't the case, then there's misalignment going on. Detecting misalignment in relationships. Examples include saying yes when you want to decline. Your growth or success is intimidating to people in your life. You do not get the support that you give to others. Again, if these statements are ringing true, then those are indications of misalignment because you aren't being honest or authentic to yourself when you're accepting things that you don't want to accept, when you're saying yes when it's not what you really mean, when you're shrinking yourself and hiding your true self because you don't want to shine too brightly in fear that other people will think that you are arrogant or greedy or selfish. Maybe you're a person that's constantly giving, but you don't get things back in return. That's not balance. That's misalignment. Internally, going back to our inner world, our mind, our conscience, our soul, your daily choices and behaviors do not align with your values. Negative thoughts and self talk are common. You don't feel worthy of your dreams. So you should see some similarity across these indicators of misalignment that we've covered so far. Doing things you don't want to do, saying yes when you don't want to, making choices that you don't feel comfortable with. The negative self talk is a big one. Intrusive thoughts, limiting beliefs. I'm sure you've heard some of these words before. According to psychologists, we have more negative thoughts than positive thoughts throughout a day. But those are things that can be rewired, redirected, challenged. And there's a whole assessment process that you can go through every time one of those thoughts pop up. And these are things that I work with clients, about all the time. This is a very common area of challenge for people. Negative thoughts, disbelief in your value and your potential and your capacity, not feeling that you're worthy of making more money, that you're worthy of getting that great job, that you're worthy of having a great partner, good friends, honest relationships. Why wouldn't you be worthy of those things? Every human is entitled to that. You don't deserve to be mistreated, and you don't deserve to live at a lower standard than your potential. So, how do we begin to bring things into alignment? Bringing aspects of your life fully into alignment may take some time, but you can start now. Assess your values. Make a list of your core values, things that are meaningful to you. Reflect on your life purpose. What do you feel like you were brought into this world to do? What unique aspects of your person can you identify? In what ways have you been guided throughout life in certain directions? What do your boundaries look like? When things happen that are harmful to you, how do you react? Or do you have boundaries? Do those boundaries transcend all of your relationships or just your work relationships? Or just your spouse and children, but not necessarily your parents? We also have to look at our shadow side. What does that mean? You can think about this as kind of the yin and yang. And usually that's, half of a circle, one half is black, one half is white. The white side can be thought of as the light, and the dark side can be thought of as the shadow. And in every person, we have light and dark, right? And those dark aspects are trauma, right, that we've experienced throughout our lives. Those shadow sides are bad behaviors, toxic behaviors that we've let go on for way too long, bad habits. So we have to assess our shadow as much as we assess our light, because we're never going to get rid of our shadow. We want to have our shadow, right? There are good aspects of the shadow as well that we don't have time to get into in this particular webinar. But light and shadow, both needed, both necessary in our lives. So take tiny, small, or medium, steps in the beginning, and then move on to those large steps to bring things into alignment in your life. Like I said, today that might look like just making a list of your values, and then maybe putting yes or no next to each value. Are you upholding that value? Yes, no. You can do something as small as that right now, and you should, especially if you identified with those indicators of misalignment. You could take that a step further and begin to track your behavior. Get a journal and write down those negative thoughts that intrude upon your mind daily, and assess whether those things are actually true. And if they are true, what's evidence of them being true? You could take a bigger step and decide that there may be some people in your life you may need to move away from. Maybe not permanently, maybe permanently. People that are draining your energy, that aren't being reciprocal, and certainly people that are causing harm in any way, shape, or form. Move away from them. That's a big step. It can be scary and challenging, but sometimes we actually have to change our relationships to make change in our own lives. So make short, mid, and long term plans of action for your life. And you don't have to do this alone. Find support. We live in the age of the World Wide Web, right? You can establish all sorts of communities online, join all sorts of groups in your town on Facebook. And there's also formal networks of support. Depending on your need, counseling may be necessary, therapy may be necessary, especially if you're dealing with a lot of childhood trauma. You're dealing with negligence and histories of abuse and things like that might require some counseling and therapy. A lot of the things that you are challenged with could be resolved through coaching. Coaching is a very powerful mechanism of change. It is not set up to be a lifelong process, but it equips you to take responsibility for your life and to deeply reflect upon your barriers and boundaries, external and internal. And then it also gives you the tools to move forward and to maintain that change. And I am one of many coaches that you could work with. I coach folks around a variety of issues, a variety of challenges. And so if you want to work with me, which I would love to work with you all, you can contact me via my website or email. I offer a lot of different services. There are free resources that you can access. This webinar is one of those free resources. I also have a life alignment audit. That is that checklist that I talked about. That's a free printable PDF that you can find on the website. I obviously offer coaching services. We can set up a free discovery call. We can do a one-time session, or you can work with me, for a 3-month period or longer. So there are lots of options. I also provide Reiki services. If you don't know what Reiki is, it's energy work. Because one part of alignment, especially personal alignment, is settling your nervous system, bringing that inner realm to a place of calm, consciously and intentionally breathing. Reiki can really manipulate and shift energy for the better. And it can also unlock, or what's another word to use? Clear energy blocks. How do you know if there's an energy block in your life? You're mentally or physically fatigued often. You're drained all the time. You're consumed with negativity. If those are things that resonate with you, you could use some Reiki realignment to bring your natural light and life source energy to the front. And so there's a lot of information that you can look at on the website regarding Reiki services. You can do those in partnership with coaching. And last but not least, are options for business consulting. You work for a company or a corporation. Maybe there's misalignment there. Likely there are misalignments in most companies or organizations, at least at some point, especially those that have multiple employees. How do folks handle feedback, giving and receiving feedback? What's the culture in the work environment? What kind of dynamics exist between employer and employee and other levels of status within that workplace? These are some of the things that I offer as far as business consulting. So in a lot of ways, these are all connected, right? These are all connected, and hopefully you can see those similarities and overlaps. So if you're interested in working with me, please reach out. I would be happy to work with you. Come back to this webinar as often as you'd like. And like I said, begin today. This is something that you can begin today. Best wishes to you. Take care.